So let's go ahead and open up the package and I'll show you what the bare root Astilbe looks like.
So you see that? That's a whole other plant. Want to add a splash of color to your shady garden? Meet Astilbe, one of the best blooming plants for brightening up low light spots. In this video, I'll show you how to get the most blooms by cleaning up and fertilizing your Astilbe in spring. We'll also take a look at planting affordable bare root Astilbe. Most of mine were actually started that way. And how to divide mature plants to grow even more for free. And if you garden in the shade, stick around because at the end, I'll share another video where I showcase some beautiful shade plant combinations from my own garden to inspire your next planting. In this corner here, underneath my beautiful magnolia that is just about done blooming now, I have a little grouping of Astilbe. It's actually become quite a big drift at this point. I probably have 6 or 7 plants here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all of these leaves, and I'm also going to cut back last year's foliage, and I'm going to feed them. Because what I've learned about growing Astilbe over the last several years is that they really benefit from some fertilizer. In the past, when I hadn't gotten blooms, I started to research why it was that my Astilbe wasn't blooming. And I kept coming across information that said that they were heavy feeders. So now for the last several years, I have been feeding them with some plant tone fertilizer very early in the spring, and I have found that they are responding beautifully and they send up beautiful bloom plumes for me somewhere around the end of June, beginning of July. So that is what I'm going to do to this section of Astilbe today. These are last year's blooms, and I left them up because I thought that the plumes looked really pretty even as they aged, to provide a little bit of late fall and winter interest. But now I'm going to go ahead and follow them down to the bottom and just cut off all of last year's blooms. And you can see at the base of the plant that all my new foliage is already emerging. So this is a clue to me that I need to go through, clean this all up, and feed them. It is a chilly spring morning, and we're going to go ahead and plant some of this bare root Astilbe that I recently picked up. Now, it's a good idea to keep the card that comes with your bare root perennial so that you can mark the date that you planted those bare roots and have this for reference. It often provides information such as the light conditions, the spacing, the depth, and how to plant your hole and so forth. So these provide a lot of great and useful information for your bare root perennials. So let's go ahead and open up the package, and I'll show you what the bare root Astilbe looks like. Okay, usually your bare roots are going to be packed in some kind of peat or a medium to keep the bare roots somewhat moist during transport and storage. You can see where all of the old shoots were, and we even have some new shoots coming up here. And the bottom is where all of the roots are. So you're going to plant it in your planting hole like this, with the shoots facing upwards and the roots facing downward. And you want to plant them at soil level, the crown at soil level. So if you plant it too deep, you can risk rotting this crown. And if you plant it too high, the roots will dry out, which can also damage the plant. So the proper place to plant it is having your crown right at soil level like this. In the spring, you often see Astilbe available as bare root plants. This is a great way to purchase perennials like Astilbe. They are generally more affordable and come in many varieties. It is best to plant bare root Astilbe in spring while the soil is cool and moist. This encourages strong root growth. They grow best in zones 3 through 8 and planted in part to full shade. It prefers to grow in rich, moist soil. Not only is Astilbe beautiful with its plume-like blooms that come in various colors like red, pink, purple, and white, but it also has a really attractive fern-like foliage that contrasts nicely with other textures in the garden. It's also a pollinator attractor and, as an added bonus, deer resistant. When planting perennials from bare root, you might get foliage and a couple of blooms in year 1, but it does take a couple of seasons to have a profusely blooming plant. Remember this rule for perennials. Year 1, they sleep, year 2, they creep, and year 3, they leap. And don't forget to fertilize with an all-purpose granular fertilizer each year in spring for a fantastic bloom show. I've dug my hole pretty shallow because these bare roots are small, and I can see that once I push the soil back over, they'll be just about at ground level. Make sure you tease your roots apart before you plant them as well. I am going to add a little bit of startup fertilizer like Biotone to get the roots really going and growing. And I am going to plant both bare roots fairly close to each other because I want them to grow in a larger clump. And that's all there is to it. And make sure you put a tag there because you might think you'll remember what you planted, but more often than not, we forget. The spring is also a great time to dig up and either transplant or divide Astilbe. And I have some growing under these large oak trees here that, while it does get sufficient shade, I don't think it's getting enough moisture because it's competing for nutrients with all of the tree roots in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and dig up that clump of Astilbe and move it to a spot that it should be a bit happier. Here's my clump of Astilbe that I just dug up, and you can see that it's already pushing out some new growth. And since I had this Astilbe planted under those trees for about 3 years now, I'm going to go ahead and divide this clump. As I was digging it up, one piece already fell off. So you see that? That's a whole other plant. And I'm probably going to get maybe 2 more clumps out of this. And it's always a good idea when you dig up a perennial, if you can divide it to divide it, it really does help rejuvenate the plant. And I'm going to place it right here in this area where we planted the 2 bare roots earlier so that I can have a nice drift of Astilbe in this space shaded by this Katsura Japanese maple. There is nice, rich, moist soil over here, so I think that they'll be really happy in this spot. And here they are. I was able to get 3 divisions off of that one Astilbe plant that we dug up and moved. And now I will have 3. So this is a great way to stretch your gardening budget by just dividing the plants in your garden you already have to get more plants. And I'm really going to love this Astilbe here. It's such a beautiful perennial to add a pop of color in a shady spot in the garden. Over the next several weeks, the shade perennials in my garden will continue to fill out and bring lots of beautiful color. While I've mostly gardened in the sun, I've been having a lot of fun getting creative with shade plant combinations. I made this video that you can check out next for some inspiration on filling your shade garden with gorgeous texture and color. I'll link the video here on the screen, and you can also find it down below in the description and in the first pinned comment. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.